So Sarah and John head to a house that Sarah's stepmom is selling so they know it's empty so that they can lay low. And the plan is for JJ to get them a boat the next day, and they're then going to take off for Mexico to start a new life together. When Pope, JJ, and Key wake up the next day, they know John hasn't been caught because the cops are still looking for him. Pope goes to get gas for the boat, but he's being very short with Key, and he's overall just pissed off at her for how she acted when he told her that he loved her. As the kids would say, he's all up in his feelings. Now, since the Outer Banks doesn't have the strongest police force, something called the SBI shows up to assist with the search. And their plan is to go door to door until they find John B., including abandoned houses or ones that are being sold. And with John B. still out there, the chance that Ward gets caught and the truth comes out is also still on the table. And because of that, Ward is freaking out a little bit. He tells his wife that there are just too many loose threads, and she tries to get him to leave, but he says, it's a little guilty as hell if I just pick up and leave, and I'm also not leaving without my daughter. And that's when it hits her. That's it. You're the concerned father. Go down there and act like you're assisting with the search, but in reality, you're just picking up Sarah. I mean, after all, it's your word against his. Who are they going to believe? And Sarah left that morning to go tell the truth because that's the only way John B. is going to be able to get his freedom. But when she gets to ground zero, they're not allowing her to speak to anybody. She's begging to talk to somebody, and finally she gets the attention of the head guy of the SBI. But as soon as she's about to tell him the truth, Ward shows up and takes her. She's screaming about how John didn't shoot the sheriff and that she was there, but Ward is reassuring him that she wasn't on the tarmac that day, and his wife can attest to that, and she's going through a tough time right now because she was in a relationship with him. She continues to freak out, and finally Ward just goes, okay, then fine. Who shot the sheriff? Thinking that she won't actually tell the truth, but she does and says it was Rafe. And as soon as she says that, you can see the look on Ward's face is just, oh my God, I can't believe she just did that. Ward takes the SBI agent to the side and explains how she was just diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and she's in a relationship with this guy, and he's got her all brainwashed. Can I just take my daughter home? And the guy says, yeah, you can, but we're going to talk to her first. The problem with that is when he goes to talk to her, Sarah has escaped because she continued to freak out and ended up kneeing the guy in the balls and running back to John. Ward's other kid is tweaking hard. Rafe heads to Barry's to try to get more cocaine, but Barry's all out and Rafe freaks out at him. He asks Barry, have you ever done something that you never thought you would do, something just unspeakable? And Barry jokes around saying, what could you have possibly done? Messed up somebody's tea time country club? I was in the army. I guarantee whatever I did was worse than you. I got an issue right now. These kids stole my 25 grand. Your sister did. So you don't see me here crying about it. I'm going to go get those kids. And Rafe tells him, it was John B. who stole your money. He goes, exactly. And what do you think's going to happen when the cops catch him? He's going to start snitching about me. So I better catch him first and get my money back. So both Barry and Rafe head off to try to find John B. And Rafe wants him gone and preferably dead so that the truth never gets out. So teaming up with Barry to try to find John is an ideal situation. Now Rafe's sister makes it back to John B. But basically as soon as she shows up, they're going door to door looking for him and they have to escape. They grab some paddle boards and paddle away. But they get to a point where John says, look, we're going to have to go our separate ways because I'm going to have to go back to my house and grab the gold that's under my bed. She tells him that it's probably going to be swarming with cops, and he goes, well, I don't really have a choice because we can't start a new life without that gold. I need to get it and sell it. So you're going to meet me tomorrow at the boat ramp. She doesn't want to leave him, but she doesn't really have a choice. And shortly after John B. leaves her, Sarah is scooped up by family friends who are out in the water that day, concerned for her safety because a tropical storm is coming in. Pope, meanwhile, headed to his dad's store to try to steal some gas, and he gets caught by his dad. And his dad tells him, you're not going anywhere with that gas, but he says, my friend's in trouble, and I'm leaving with this. And Pope tries to stick up to his dad, and his dad goes right back at him, and Pope ends up punching his dad, but his dad doesn't lay a finger on him. And as Pope is walking away, his dad is just berating him, telling him how ungrateful he is, which honestly is pretty true. Now, Key and JJ go to Key's parents' restaurant to get food for John, and Key is mentioning how weird Pope is acting and how she just wishes the old Pope would come back. The next stop is to try to get the boat key from JJ's dad, which won't be easy to do because the last time the two were together, there was a fist fight. But when JJ walks in, his dad is passed out on alcohol, pills, maybe both. And as he's trying to get the key, his dad wakes up. And his dad is so messed up that he asks JJ in the middle of the summer if he's skipping school. He then gets up and tells him how he loves him and how he gets mad at him sometimes, but how it freaks him out that he reminds him so much of his mother. He passes out and JJ grabs the key and they head off to grab the boat. As Key and JJ drive over to get the boat, they're caught by Barry and Rafe, who follow them there. And as JJ is talking up his dad's boat, both Barry and Rafe show up to try to get revenge. Barry is beating up JJ at gunpoint while Rafe accosts Key, asking the whereabouts of John, although she doesn't know. She does say, however, I know what you did. I know you shot the sheriff. And Barry hears this. But when she says it, Ray chokes her. At this point, however, Pope has shown up, and he's also looking for some revenge, and he kicks the shit out of Rafe. I mean, it's awesome. Pope takes out all that pent-up frustration on him, including the fact that this kid mugged him a few days ago. It gets to the point where JJ actually has to pull him off of him. The group leaves, and JJ and Barry are just trying to get their wits about him after getting their asses kicked, and Barry looks at him and says, I'm impressed, country club. The sheriff. But you better hope to God you're worth more to me than that $25,000 bounty, because now I own you. and Rafe knows it. The group heads off to meet John at the boat ramp, and Sarah's warning about the cops being at John's place was correct. They're there going through his dad's old stuff, and the cop finds the map and the gold and says, "I think this kid actually finished what his old man started. We just walked into something way deeper than we thought." John from a distance watches the cop take his dad's stuff, including his gold nugget, and puts it in his car. So when they go back in the house, John sneaks in the car and grabs the gold, but when he goes to start the car up, it's a push to start and you actually need the key fob. So he uses the radio and draws the cop out and gets him closer and closer until finally he can start the car and he speeds off. He meets up with his friends at the boat ramp, but immediately wants to know where Sarah is, and she's nowhere to be found and no one's heard from her. And while John wants to wait for her, he knows that he can't. He knows he's got to get a move on. So he reluctantly leaves and says, "Tell Sarah I'm sorry," and I say goodbye. But he drove there in a cop car that had GPS, so the cops are on their way. Although the group doesn't actually know that. And after they say goodbye to John and they watch him leave, Pope turns the key and apologizes for the way he's been acting, and the two end up kissing. And it would be a really romantic moment if just seconds later, the cops don't swarm in and arrest him and realize that John has gotten away. They try to shut down the waterways and the roads, but they still have no idea where John is. And as John is trying to make it out, he sees Sarah running on a dock trying to get his attention, and he goes to pick her up. She chastises him for trying to leave without her, and the two take off together. But that tropical storm is approaching the island really, really fast, and they have to be careful about it. Their plan is to get past ground zero and then make their way to Mexico, and they turn off all the lights and go dark, and it seems like they're about to get away, until all of a sudden the power turns back on that one side of the island and all the lights come on, including the lighthouse. And in front of all the cops and all the SBI, there they are just sitting ducks. They immediately have to change their plans, and they have to drive into the storm because they're forced to by the police who are chasing them. And it gets so dangerous that the head of the SBI calls off the dogs, but they are continuing to go headfirst into the storm, and it's not wise to do because their boat can't handle that. The head of the SBI tries one more tactic, and he gets Ward on the line to talk to John. Ward tells him, "If you love my daughter the way I think you do, you'll turn that boat around and bring her back, and we can figure this whole mess out." But John grabs the radio and says, "You killed my father, and then you framed me for a murder I didn't commit. You took everything from me. So just know, I'm coming for you, and I'm going to get what's mine." And both the new sheriff and the head of the SBI heard that conversation and are now staring at Ward. They then lose the radio connection and they can't talk to him anymore, but the head of the sheriff's department tells Ward, "You're going to want to stick around, we're going to want to talk to you." But as I said, that boat wasn't made for a tropical storm, and right before it capsizes, John looks at her and says, "I'd rather die than go to jail." And then she looks at John and says, "I'd rather die than to be without you. I'll give you a minute just to puke." 2, 1. Okay, we're back. Now, the cops and the SBI continued the search, but there was only so much they could do because they were hit with a tropical storm. And the new sheriff comes back and lets Key, JJ, and Pope know that they didn't find John. And initially, Pope thinks that's great, they got away, but his face says otherwise. He explains to Pope that while they didn't find him and they're not dead yet, it's probably unlikely that they got away because of the impact of the storm. And when reality sets in for the group, they flip out, screaming at the cops, saying that you drove them into that storm for a crime that you know they didn't commit. Now, the boat did in fact capsize, but John and Sarah did not die. And as they're floating in the water, clinging to the capsized boat, they see a freighter off in the distance. Sarah grabs the gold nugget and tries to get their attention by shining it, and it actually works. They see him. They're brought onto the freighter and given blankets and coffee, and the guy asks, "What were you guys doing out there?" But they don't give him an answer. They just say, "Hey, can you drop us off at the next port?" The captain agrees, and as he's writing down the paperwork, John says, "By the way, where were you going?" And he says, "Nassau." And Sarah looks at John and says, "Oh my God, the Bahamas, the gold." And there's a change of plans. They're no longer being dropped off at the next port. They're heading straight for the gold. And that is how the first season of Outer Banks ends. Please consider subscribing to this channel. I would truly appreciate it. If you got this far, I assume you liked the video, but if you thought it sucked, there is a thumbs down button. There's also a share button, so please share this on your social media platforms. Let people know. If you needed a recap, other people probably do as well. There's also a comment section down there that I do not look at, because that one nasty comment out of 100 will be the one that I see. So if you say something and I don't respond, don't take it personally, but just know, I do appreciate you watching this.